Welcome to Transit Unplugged. I'm Paul Comfort, and on this episode of Transit Unplugged, we speak with Arthur Nicolette, Chief Executive Officer of Transdev Canada. This is our third episode that we recorded while at the APTA conference in Edmonton, Canada. This is a great episode where we talk about contracting in Canada, which is so prevalent across the nation as it is here in the United States and really across the world. And Arthur heads up one of the largest companies in Canada that operates contract services for transit agencies around the country. We also filmed an episode of Transit Unplugged TV while we were there in Edmonton, Canada, and it is live airing now on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel, Transit Unplugged TV, and check out the show and see some of the interview and see what we're talking about there. On next week's episode, our year-end review, make sure you tune in then and subscribe today so you never miss an episode. We interview Paul Skoutelas. We moved from Canada here to the U.S. Paul Skoutelas is CEO of APTA, the American Public Transportation Association, and also Petra Mollet, who is head of their international programs there. And so Paul talks about what's happening, the trends coming out of this year into 2024, what the lessons learned were in 2023, and Petra talks about some of their international travels that APTA took this last year, places like Australia and also Barcelona, and lessons they learned from transit agencies there. It's a phenomenal episode. I think you'll enjoy both of them. And now let's tune in to our interview with Arthur Nicolette. We recorded it live while at the APTA conference in Edmonton, Canada. Great to be at the Canadian Urban Transit Association's conference in Edmonton, Canada, with my Canadian friends, and great to have with us today Arthur Nicolette, who is CEO of Transdev Canada. Thanks for being a guest today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I guess Transdev is the world's largest contracting company that contracts to operate public transportation. Is that right? I mean, that's what.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's the biggest private operator worldwide. So
right. Yeah, and I've interviewed several of the leaders of the company over the years. You know, in my background, I actually worked for a company, Yellow Transportation in Baltimore, that was bought by Connex, which became Veolia, which became Transdev. And so I got a little bit of connection there. But tell us some about your company and the role you play here in Canada.
So as you said, that's the biggest of, private operator worldwide. It's a multimodal company. We operate all modes of transportation. And I came here 5 years ago in Canada just to develop our operation across Canada.
Oh.
Yeah, really. We started really with small operation, transit operation around Montreal. And really the objective, it was, to become, the first multimodal operator across Canada. And, for the past 5 years, it went well, of course, with upside down, in any industry and organization because of COVID, because of so many challenges that we have. But so far, we developed activities in the rail with P3 projects in Ontario, especially with the Ontario line, which is the automated metro. We have developed also our operation in the medical transportation, and we are the leader in Ontario as well. We have now with, our new acquisition in the west part of Canada, we have lots of operation in BC.
What did you acquire?
First Transit.
Oh, right. Oh, with First Transit. Yeah,
sure. So now we have, operation in the west coast of Canada, and that brings also new talents as well. So it was quite a journey.
Yeah.
I'm literally born and raised at Transdev. So I've done all my career there.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I started, by an internship, and then I moved, from a really small operation. I was GM, and then I moved, step by step, all kind of position inside the organization.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
So what was the job you had right before you came to Canada?
I was in charge of the P3 project, the biggest one in France, in Normandy.
Oh, in Normandy.
Yeah, correct. For a city. So we were in charge, and maybe, it comes also out contracting. It was the way we delegate the operation, the clients delegates. It's really, you are in charge of the ridership.
Right.
You are in charge of the fares. You are in charge of investment, operation and maintenance. So really it's a full scope of operations.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Let's unpack P3s for a minute. Public-private partnerships are a methodology that government agencies or PTA sometimes use to build, maintain, and operate, right? So talk to us about how that works, because I don't think we've really talked about that too much on this podcast before, but it's used worldwide as a methodology.
I believe it's really a great and smart approach. Of course, we need guidelines in this kind of projects, but it's a way, to be creative. We talk a lot, especially nowadays that we are short in fundings. So we need to be creative. But if we want to build new solution, innovative solution, we need to bring together, manufacturers, constructions, companies, operators, and of course the clients, which represents, the passengers and the people, the community. And all together work, together to find the best solution, the best scenario.
Yes.
And that could be something great.
Which could be a P3, right?
That could be a P3.
So let's say a city wants to build a new rail line.
Yeah.
So walk us through how that might work.
But, in that way, of course, the city will release a RFP.
Right.
And then, the objective for the private operators and partners, just for, you build, a consortium. So you are several, around. Each of us brings, a piece of the solutions.
Right. So sometimes these consortiums might have 20 companies in them, right? That are building, let's say a rail line. So you might have someone who's doing the groundwork and then someone who's doing the rail work. So one company would kind of lead, but it could be a consortium or a large group of companies that bid, right?
That's correct. And the beauty of that there is, it's an intense discussion between, all the stakeholders.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We are trying always to find what is the best, the optimum solution.
Right.
For the client, for the passenger.
Yes.
To be efficient and performant. And that's great.
And sometimes when you're in the middle of the process, things happen that you weren't planning on, right? So then you have to work closely with the PTA, the Public Transport Authority, to solve those problems.
Of course, it's always a discussion with the clients, discussion, with the other partners. The thing is, you need to listen a lot to understand what are the constraints of all the stakeholders.
Yes.
If you want to find the best solution. And that's great because sometimes, you have RFP with, strict guidelines. And that's not so allow us, to provide the creativity, innovation. But when you have, and you told you that.
Yes.
More opportunities, more autonomy.
Yes.
To be creative, you can find better solutions. That's great.
When I was head of the MTA in Baltimore, we did a P3 project for something called the Purple Line, which is a rail line outside of Washington, D.C. And I remember when people were explaining to me, the reasons why a P3 would be good here. They'd already made that decision before I got there. But it said the way we design these, and tell me if this has been your experience. So they use an elevator, for an example. So you have an elevator in a rail station. In a traditional proposal, they would tell you the steel has to be this thick. You have to have this kind of electricity. It would be very descriptive and prescriptive. But in a P3, they would say, build us an elevator, Transdev, and we want it to be to transport 1,000 people every 30 minutes, the ability to do that. So they would give you kind of the goal and let you use your own creativity. Is that how you've experienced P3s in France and other places?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I will add on something, on what you explained. That's the cost of operation and maintenance.
Right.
That's something which is really interesting because you can have P3 project just for the design and construction.
Okay.
But you can have also P3s, design, construction, operation, and maintenance over the 30 years. And we know, when it comes to investment, that matters a lot.
Absolutely.
So the cost of operation and maintenance could be crucial. And so if you consider this part, you may change the investment or the design.
That's right.
And that has a major impact. At the end, it's more cost effective for the community.
Yeah. And sometimes I think people feel like if a private company is going to be responsible for the operation for 30 years, they're going to make sure that the construction is done well.
When it comes to reliability, when it comes, okay, well, we will maintain this kind of system. We will have an opinion if it's, effective enough, if it's working, performance. We will look at the other operation location around the world. Yeah. And we bring the knowledge and say, well, that's great, but maybe we can do something better.
Yeah. Maybe you learn something in Hong Kong or somewhere that you can bring to Canada, right?
And also it's a balance. Sometimes, because, we love technology innovation and can bring something which could be expensive and, not making enough savings when it comes for operation and maintenance.
Right.
So maybe it's better to have a bit more for operation and maintenance and reduce the investment. So it's always a balance. And that's the beauty of that. P3 projects, when it includes, operation and maintenance, you can have, more creative approach.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Arthur. That's good. I know we weren't planning on talking about that, but that was very interesting. So let's now kind of pivot to contracting in general. So public transit agencies across Canada, the United States, Europe, everywhere, sometimes they decide they don't want to operate things themselves.
Yeah.
They feel like there's value in getting a contractor to come in. Take us from there.
So, of course, across Canada, first, you have different kind of authorities, many authorities. You have, school boards for the school, contract, but and you have, agencies or cities, municipalities, for the transit. So all across Canada, we have different kind of contracting way to provide the service.
Okay.
They all release RFPs, of course, but the scope of operation could be really different from the east part to the west part of Canada.
Okay.
That's something, different. And, there is not bad or good, things. It's a different kind of approach. So sometimes, the authorities, the clients, delegate just, the operation and maintenance.
Okay.
So they keep the assets, the buses,
maybe the garage,
buildings, etc. Of course, they keep all the risk also on their side, when it comes to fuel or ridership.
Yes.
But it could be different, especially, in Quebec. In Quebec, we invest on the fleet. We invest on the building. So we own the building and the fleet. So we bring something different.
Right.
In Ontario, it could be also different. They depend. The school transportation, we bring everything. So yeah, that's really different in a province than the another.
Yeah. When I was over in France, and in, the United Kingdom, I also noticed that in some places they take the revenue risk. The contractors are keeping the revenue that's raised. And so you want to make the service as accessible as possible with the most passengers because that's the money. But that's not always the way here in Canada and America, is it?
Unfortunately, it's not yet the case. As I said, that's interesting when you have a larger scope for an operator because you can bring more value. It's great to have smart people around. And I'm not saying that we are the only smart people.
Right.
There are plenty of smart people. But if you want to express the creativity, you need to give, a bit more of autonomy. And again, when it comes to ridership, we can do great things. We can bring ideas, like network design. Even, you ask, the expectation of the clients, of course, and we can bring different things. We can bring transport and demand. We can have, fixed route line. Define, the timetable, maybe with a different way that can provide and make more savings as well, or be more efficient for the passengers.
I think that's interesting, Arthur, because a lot of times in the United States, at least, because I used to work at a public transit agency, but I've also worked at Contractors. So I've seen it on both sides. A lot of times a public transit agency will dictate every little detail and the contractor is more like a vendor.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Europe, where you came from in France, it seems like you're more partners. Can you talk about that? The difference between working with a contractor more as a partner who can offer ideas and suggestions on how to improve the service versus just the transit agency thinking, they know it all and this is what it's going to be.
It's likely like a partnership, of course, because, the clients and the authorities is always here, in Europe, following everything and approve or not any, initiative. But the beauty of that, even if, the client has an idea, you can, provide and give your ideas. You can challenge each other.
Okay.
And from that, maybe, we keep, the guidelines from the client, or maybe we can change. Maybe we can adapt.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And I believe, in the Canadian market, I'm a strong supporter and I say to all, the clients, you should, open a bit, just say, okay, if you have an idea, let's talk about it. Just that. There's no commitment, but let's, space for that.
Like brainstorming. So we call it.
Like a brainstorming.
I like
an
that.
option. What could be an alternative scenario?
Yes. There's a book I read a long time ago called A Whack on the Side of the Head. It's by a guy named Roger Van Ork. And one of the great lessons I learned from that was that a lot of times when you're looking for a solution to a problem, you stop at the first solution that potentially fits.
Yeah.
It's almost like you lost your car keys and you stop looking once you find them. But he suggested in this book, Whack on the Side of the Head, think differently, right? Look for a second solution, another alternative, because that may be a more elegant solution to solve more of the issues. And that's what you're talking about, it seems to me, like an opportunity for the public transit agency and the contractor to kind of brainstorm about ideas and share, maybe come up with a better solution that either one on their own could have come up with.
totally, that's true. And that could be a battle for the passengers, for the community as well. So yeah, it's great. We talk about talent. We talk about diversity. And it's why, by the way, diversity matters.
Yes.
It's not only a social challenge. It's also, a way to bring new ideas, new, views, cultural, how we can challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
And I believe we have a lot to do in this area, and there are lots of opportunities. So it's why we need to maybe to change and make, an evolution in the RFPs just to open a bit the door and let, a way, an opportunity to provide ideas and to be creative.
So let's talk about that. Some of the new challenges that are coming up. Of course, across Canada, across the United States and the world, there's a big push to move toward public transit's already a very clean medium, meaning even if you're using a diesel bus, it's cleaner than running 50 or 60 cars on the street, right? But we're trying to do even better than that and move to battery electric and hydrogen. Private contractors sometimes. So let's say a medium-sized transit agency, they may not have all this expertise and experience in setting up the charging infrastructure and creating the scope of work for the buses. But a contractor like Transdev or Skoutelas or National Express that has experience all over the world, or ITP Dev, you guys have, I think your company operates more electric buses than anybody in the world, don't you? Like 6,000 buses, I think Thierry told me. Thierry Mollet, your CEO.
Yeah. Well, of course, outside China, we are the first, private operator of electric buses.
Yeah.
And we are proud of that. So that's the value we can bring and to share.
So you know how to do this. You've done it.
We have done that in so many places with different, climate conditions.
Oh, yeah.
So we can bring the value of that. That's, the value that we can bring to our clients.
These new technologies, you've done them elsewhere. You can bring that experience to a smaller, mid-sized even a large transit agency.
Yeah. And that could be, a key element, when it comes to make a decision, a major investment for an authority.
Yes.
Before to invest in, millions of dollars in one system. It could be interesting, to have a discussion with an operator like Transdev, because we can talk about, all the costs, the life cycle cost for the next 30 years.
Yes.
And that's matter because sometimes, of course, when you are a manufacturer, you want to sell your innovation, and that's great. No offense on that.
Yeah.
But, after that, you have to operate and maintain. And there are some restrictions when it comes to operate an electric bus. There are some, costs linked to that. And that's great also to have this discussion. And maybe, the client can, fine tune, adjust, the requirements for the buses.
And maybe even like on-demand transit, right? A lot of places now coming out of the pandemic are realizing that they need to adjust their service offerings, right? So a 40-foot bus may not be the solution for one community. Maybe the solution there is on-demand transit, but they don't really know how to do it. But you guys have done this all over the world. Contractors have experience everywhere. So it's almost like you can offload the risk onto a private company who's already done this.
Again, it comes from network design. So, of course, the question and the objective is, how you move people in the city or in the area. And the way we can organize, we can do in different ways with fixed route or transport and demand, or with other solution. There are new solutions, and that key to open a bit, provide expertise on the network design. Also, we can bring something there. We can bring, the knowledge from, all those operations and think, well, we can approach, we can organize the network with different modes of transportation. We can use also the taxi. We can use big buses. We can use heavy rail. We can use transport and demand. That's the mix, which could be more efficient in the future. Really believe on the multimodal approach. It will be more efficient for the passengers, and it will be more efficient for the budgets as well.
That's good. Now, you are an international company, operate, I don't know, I'm in 19 countries or maybe more than that now. Do you work much with Laura Hendricks in America, who heads up Transdev America? Do you guys talk to each other?
Oh, yeah. We have a regular meeting, one-to-one meeting every month. So you have plenty of things and project and challenges together. So we work closely. Of course, it's our cousin. We are just close.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way. You're cousins. Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about the future a little bit, Arthur. You've got this, great
So, the yellow buses.
Yes.
We have now nearly 100 yellow buses electric.
Really?
And we are really proud of that. And we will keep going, roll out not only school buses, but also transit operation. That will be part of our roadmap. And, of course, we have different kind of, solution. We are working also on the autonomous vehicle. It will be the future.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I rode an autonomous vehicle last week operated by Google Waymo, which you guys, I think, operate through in America, Transdev. I've been in autonomous vehicles before, but there's always been like a safety concierge in there. This is the first one I was in when there was nobody in the driver's seat. And I sat right next to it. It's kind of freaky, but it's kind of cool.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
And even if it's not for tomorrow, because of course there are many, things to improve, but still, I believe that will be, the next, industrial revolution for the mobility.
Yes.
That will be really a game changer, the way that we design even the city, the way we move the people around. I believe that would be, a fantastic, opportunity to see. So yes, there's still, steps to achieve, an industrial bus, something which is working very well, but still it's really promising. And that could, it's a way also to provide more services, especially, nights and days.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm a strong believer that we can keep also human, presence.
Yes.
In this transit network. It's not, it's not a threat on that side, but we can be creative. We can imagine tomorrow the buses, especially for the school, you can have someone inside the bus, to look at, the children.
Yes.
And it would be better. We can create value on that. And I really believe that we can, that could be fantastic.
Where do you see the role of like artificial intelligence? Everybody's talking about it now, with Chat GPT, but there's so many more things that can happen with that. Do you have any comments on how that can be, how transportation can?
Sure. That will allow definitely, to have a better, understanding how, the network is working. So that's the first
analyze all the data,
the ridership, the analysis, we know that, after the pandemic, people are changing, they are not working, every day, every week. And that be, a great tool, to anticipate, and to adapt also, our transit network in real time to be a bit more agile.
Yes.
Because, when we design, timetable, frequency, but we can be a bit more adaptive.
Right.
And with this kind of tool could be,
artificial intelligence could take that data. So we're in Edmonton, the home of Wayne Gretzky and the Edmonton Oilers. And he famously said, skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is.
Yep.
And it sounds like that's what you're saying artificial intelligence can do for us. It can kind of tell us where we need to be going and get there.
For sure. And not only on the ridership, but also that could help us, to understand the mobility as a whole, when you would like to provide a multimodal, network to the city. It's complex. You need to make a lot of analysis, the city, the roads, the customer expectation, the emission, CO2 emission, plenty of factors. And it's really hard for you, just a human to, integrate all these kind of parameters. But, the artificial intelligence can provide that. They can do that better. Of course, you need, a human look on that, but still it's working, it's improving. And I believe it's promising as well.
That's great. Well, as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say to kind of sum up things or anything you want to say at the end here?
Very pleased, to be here. I will just, I would like to insist on these points. I believe, for the upcoming years, we are in a, challenging period when it comes to funding, public transportation. And definitely we need to be creative. We need to be creative. And if the authority could open a bit the door, let the space, even just, just an idea. It's not a commitment, but at least, let the space creative to challenge, to bring new things, an approach to solve this major challenge we are facing.
Arthur Nicolette, CEO of Transdev Canada. Thanks for being our guest today and best wishes as you continue to provide creative ideas to promote mobility across Canada.
Thank you so much, Paul. Looking forward.
Hi, this is Tris Hussey, editor of the Transit Unplugged podcast, and thank you for listening to the penultimate episode of 2023 with our special guest, Arthur Nicolette, CEO of Transdev Canada. Now, coming up next week is our last regular episode of 2023, And we have none other than Paul Skoutelas, CEO of APTA, and Petra Mollet, VP of Strategy and International Programs at APTA, talking with Paul about what's happened this year in transit and what do we have to look forward to in 2024. It is a great interview and you are sure to enjoy it. Hey, did you notice we have a brand new newsletter? We've given it a whole new look and a lot of great new content. Head over to transitunplugged.com and sign up for our new newsletter and see what all the fuss is about. If you have a question or a comment, or even want to be a guest on the show, feel free to email us at info@transitunplugged.com. Transit Unplugged is brought to you by Modaxo. At Modaxo, we're passionate about moving the world's people, and at Transit Unplugged, we're passionate about telling those stories. So until next week, ride safe and ride happy.